Now joined live from San Francisco in the United States by Anastasia Popova, who's a political consultant and civil activist. Anastasia, thank you so much for joining us here today on Anews. Now, I understand that you have very strong connections with Ukraine personally. Could you tell us, from maybe connections you've had in the past few days, what is the latest the position that we know about coming out of Ukraine?
Well, good morning, yes, I've been in touch with all my friends and dearest ones who are right now in Ukraine, and the situation is quite terrible since it's war situation. Now Russian missiles destroying Kyiv, Kharkiv and other peaceful cities, and people are dying, civilians are dying, not just militants. And Russian soldiers are taken to the streets, and well, we need to demand from international society to influence this situation. We need more sanction on Russia to save Ukraine, to save peaceful cities, to save citizens who are right now dying there.
Just before we talk about excuse me, about that. Yesterday we were hearing news that Kharkiv had been was on the verge of being taken by Russian forces, and we've been hearing today about a very large convoy that's bearing down on Kyiv, and of course the strikes we were just reporting earlier in this bulletin about on the television masts in Kyiv. Are the citizens still, alongside with the Ukrainian military, still able to hold control of their cities?
Well, citizens and Ukrainian military are doing their best, and some cities they're going back and forth. That's the war, and a lot of civilians are fleeing the major cities or hiding, but most of them, they are doing their best to protect their home cities, because they are not ready to give up. Ukrainians are really brave nation, so they are fighting as heroes.
Well, about the fighting, we know that, of course, many people have chosen, I think something like 650,000 at this stage, have chosen to leave their homeland, to seek refuge in neighbouring countries like Romania and Poland and Hungary and so on. But very many have remained, especially the men haven't been able to travel, I believe. And many men and women are taking up arms. Have you heard any reports about how people are organising themselves inside Ukraine in civilian resistance units, so to speak? How are they fighting back?
Well, I can say that they are fighting back bravely, and of course there are like civil units to protect the homeland, their home country, and there are a lot of militants who are fighting for their country. You know, since I'm not in Ukraine and I'm just getting in touch with my friends and with my colleagues there, I can just share with you the information that you probably have in news right now. But I can tell for like our efforts to protect Ukraine, because you know all the cities of the United States, they stepped out to protest against this war, and we are calling for help to Ukraine. That's our efforts, what we are doing, and we are arranging fundraising campaigns. We are sending you know, everything that's might be needed right there at the war.
And in San Francisco, I believe you had a large demonstration. What are Americans saying to you? I was chatting with somebody on social media the other day, and they were asking me, as an American, how can I help Ukrainians? I'm over here, they're over there. What can I do to help? So can you tell us a little bit about the protests in support of Ukraine that are happening in the United States, and how can people, how can individuals best support Ukraine?
So last weekend there were two large rallies in San Francisco and numerous rallies along the United States, New York, Boston, Washington, D.C., Austin, Texas joined the rallies. San Francisco, of course, and thousands of people stepped out to protest against war in Ukraine. So our primary goal of these rallies is to raise people's awareness. A lot of Americans didn't know about what's going on, and they learn about the terrible thing going on in Ukraine, the war against the whole Ukrainian nations during the rallies, and we are calling for American government for more sanctions against Putin's government. We are trying to explain to people, to U.S. government, that not just a war against the Ukraine. That's the genocide against the whole Ukrainian nation arranged by Putin's government, and we're also reaching out to Russian people here in United States. Most of them, they support Ukraine, they donate, they participate in our rallies and our fundraising campaigns. We're asking them to tell the truth to Russian people within Russia, to explain the horrible thing their government right now committing to Ukraine, to Ukrainian people, to the whole world, because Ukraine right now is on the forepost of world's democracy, on forepost of world's safety.
Well, and that's a very important point you just raised. Today, in just a few hours' time, US President Joe Biden will be making his State of the Union address, and Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky has asked Joe Biden to address the situation in Ukraine in this State of the Union address and point out that Ukraine's resistance isn't just about one country, but also about democracy and freedom, and that all Americans should care about it. Do you think the politicians, not just in the United States but around the world, are doing enough to support Ukraine?
Well, it's never enough during the war and in the war situation, but I would like to thank U.S. government who are really listening to our callings, to what we demand, and I think at this point it's very important also to use the diplomatic measures to prevent this war. So and we know that there are still negotiation process in progress, so I guess the sanctions are the best way to proceed right now. The only thing that is missing is the closure of skies over the Ukraine, and we as public diplomats, we are requesting that that will really help Ukraine to fight back against Putin's aggressions.
This is an important point as well. Now, also along the diplomatic meetings, many high-level meetings going on around the world. Again, in New York, the United Nations General Assembly is meeting at the moment, started yesterday, continuing, I believe, till tomorrow. Today, the European Union had a special session, which appeared to be quite an emotional affair, standing ovation for President Zelensky. These discussions are very good, but I think what you're saying is that more action further than the sanctions that have been imposed need to be taken. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So, again, I would like to state that all the ways to protect Ukraine are good at this point, and we do not have to choose and pick just one of them. So the whole complex of political sanctions, economical sanctions against Putin's government, public diplomacy, all like closure of skies over Ukraine, all the measures are good in this situation, and we do not have to pick just one of them.
Absolutely. Well, Anastasia, thank you so much for joining us and explaining the situation, and particularly how people can help making sure that they tell the truth to the people around the world, especially to Russians, where as and when they can. The more voices that are raised, the better. We hope that peace prevails for the sake of the whole world sooner rather than later. Thank you so much for joining us here today on Anews.
Glory to Ukraine. Thank you.